Today I'm going to show you how to fix a rust spot on a fender using the Habitat Black Epoxy Putty. Now here you can see I have a huge rust spot on the fender that's about 5-6 inches in diameter. That all needs to be cut out, removed, and fixed, and this vehicle won't pass inspections anymore. And we have the same issue on the driver's side fender. That's a little bit larger hole. It's about 10 inches and also needs fixing. Now, I thought about removing the fenders, replacing them, and having them painted, but that's going to end up costing me quite a bit of money. Our other option would be to use something like polyester resin, but since that retains moisture and causes metal to rust, instead I'm going to be using epoxy putty, which is way cheaper when you compare it per pound, and it doesn't smell as bad as the polyester resin, which smells really bad. So let's go ahead and get this started. To start the project, we're first going to mark the area that's about to be cut using a marker. So this area is about to be cut out, and before we can do that, we need to remove the wheel of the vehicle, and then we're also going to remove the fender liner. Once that is removed, we got plenty of workspace and we're ready to cut the actual metal out. Now, to cut the metal, we're going to be using an angle grinder. This is a 4.5-inch angle grinder. We're using it with a cutout or cut-off blade. Note here, you want to make sure that you cut all the rust out. You don't want to have any of the rust remaining on the vehicle. Otherwise, that rust will come back. So make sure that all the rust is cut out. Now, with a sanding disc, we're going to go around the same area and we're going to remove some of that paint. Now, once the rusted part is completely cut out and the area is sanded, we can focus on filling that void. And to fill that void, we're going to use some wire mesh. Here, I found a piece laying around the shop. This is a stainless steel mesh. We're going to trace it down and cut it out. And what that does, it basically creates a membrane for the epoxy to be built up onto. So the mesh is basically holding the epoxy in place in the repair spot. Now, as far as the material that we're using for this project, this is called Freeform Habitat Black. Some of the benefits of using the Freeform Habitat Black are the low odor from the material, unlike regular auto body fillers that are made with polyester resin and stink. This is a low odor product that has an easy to follow mix ratio, 1:1 by either weight or volume, and you're never stuck guessing how much hardener you need. And important, it does not retain moisture, unlike the polyester resin, so that's why you can see sometimes those rust spots come right back out, and this will definitely prevent from doing that. Let's go ahead and first dispense the material. We're going to dispense the part A and part B separately. This is a thick paste material. It's very sticky, so you want to handle it with a mixing stick. And we're simply going to dispense some into our dispensing container. This is a procedure that we call pack it in and level it off. What you're looking to avoid is having some large air bubbles in your dispensing container, possibly throwing your mix ratio off. So again, pack it in and level it off whenever you're dispensing very thick materials such as epoxy pastes. Now we can go ahead and dispense the part B the same way. We're going to pack it in and level it off. And then I want you to take a quick look at the technical bulletin under the curing and heat resistance section. You'll see that the elevated heat will cure epoxy much faster. So the fact that we heated up our A and B is going to expedite the working time and the cure time of the material. Now, I've found that heating up the material for about 15 seconds in the microwave, you're going to soften the consistency of the material, making it a lot easier to blend and mix, whereby before at room temperature, the material is very thick and sticky. And by heating up the Habitat Black in a microwave for 15 seconds will shorten the work time, the pot life, from 60 minutes to down about 20 minutes. So that's a significant drop. And the full cure is not going to be 16 hours anymore. It's going to be rather like 2 or 3 hours. Now I can simply dispense the part A and the part B. And you can see that the material is much softer and not as sticky as it was previously. Now, for you people out there that have used the Habitat Black, you know that usually you need a folding powder to mix the material by hand. But since we're not mixing this by hand and we're not going to be handling it by hand, we don't need the folding powder to keep our hands clean off the material. Now, using a putty knife, we can simply combine the two materials together, mix it thoroughly. And mix this until you get an even color off the two. So you shouldn't see any streaking off the white or the black. It should be all a dark gray all throughout. And you can see here I'm just simply scraping using the putty knife and then folding it on itself. So here we have it. And I'm simply going to put some of my spatula and I'm going to go around the perimeter of the cut that we made on the inside of the fender. So we're going to apply some of that epoxy putty, and then we're going to put our mesh that we pre-cut and pre-shaped earlier into that epoxy putty. Now, here I've made a little jig that was going to help me to actually hold the mesh in place. But what I've discovered as I actually applied the epoxy is the fact that the epoxy is so thick and sticky that it's going to hold the mesh in place. So I did not need that jig, which is actually kind of nice because it saved me some workspace here, and I was much easier to actually work with the material. I smoothened out these edges, as you can see here. We're going to smoothen these out and make them flush as possible with the rest of the fender. The material is now allowed a partial cure for about 1 hour. Keep in mind we heated up the epoxy, so the partial cure is going to be much faster, just as the full cure is going to be much faster because the exotherm has been already activated and speeded up. Now, in 1 hour, the material is going to be stiff enough that we can apply more material over it without the fear of moving the actual mesh out of its placing. So while the applied material is partially curing, we're going to go back and we're going to clean the dispensing, mixing, and application tools that we used for the material. Keep in mind that cleaning these tools at the stage where the epoxy is still soft is going to give you a much easier time than if you have to go and clean them once the epoxy has hardened. So we're going to use some isopropyl or denatured alcohol, and we're going to clean all the tools that were in contact with the epoxy putty. Now, additional material is dispensed and mixed just like we did before. We can return to the patch and we can apply a layer over the top, basically filling in that mesh. We're filling the mesh with material so that there's no metal actually exposed. Now I'm going to go around the entire perimeter and basically do all the filling that needs to be done. So we're going to build up that repair spot and we're going to shape it at the same time. And here I'm also going to use a squeegee tool, so to say, and give it some definition. And don't forget the underside and the inside of that repair. It's really important that we hit all of those areas and give it some shape now, so once it fully dries and cures, we can come back and sand this area. Now, the repair spot is allowed a full cure for 16 hours before proceeding on to the next step. Now, it's been 16 hours and the repair is nice and solid and hard. We can go ahead and start sanding this. I'm going to simply knock off some of those high spots with a handheld sanding block. And then we're going to come back with a sander, orbital sander, and we're going to actually start to shape this area and kind of take the highlights off and kind of give it some definition and try to match it with the rest of the car body. So now that the area is sanded, I'm using a quickie spray bottle here with some denatured alcohol. I'm going to clean and wipe the entire area off. The isopropyl alcohol is allowed to fully dry before moving on to the next step. I'm happy with the outcome here, and I'm going to tape this off and then paint the area to finish the project. Now, the area is primed with an automotive primer and then painted using automotive paints. I obtained these at the local automotive store, so I know for sure that they're for cars. I try to match the color of the vehicle as closely as possible that I could with the spray paint that I found on the shelf. Also keep in mind, whenever you're priming and painting, follow the instructions as far as recoating and drying time off the manufacturers. Once everything is painted and the paint is dried, we're going to come back with a clear coat and seal that in. And once you're happy with the clear coat, we can remove the masking that we have and allow the paint to dry fully. Now here I'm going to show you the other side of the vehicle. So the same thing was done on the other side, on the other fender, because it was rusted through just as badly and was not going to pass the inspections. So we did the absolutely same step-by-step procedure on both fenders. To fix both of the fenders on the vehicle, we ended up using about a third of the trial unit of the Freeform Habitat Black. Now, when you break it down, this ends up costing us about $13 worth of epoxy spent on this project. And we still have lots of material left over for other projects. And here's our end result. Our project is finished. The fenders look absolutely amazing, and we're able to save a ton of money and get this project done. And now we're off to the inspection station. The vehicle actually received the inspection sticker and was registered the next day. Now, if you got inspired by our project here and you would like to give your own project a go and need some material, you can get some by visiting any one of our distributors around the world. So it's been now at least a month since we repaired our fenders with the black Habitat, and as you can see, there's no blemishes to see. We had several nights of freezing cold here and there's no cracking, and now that it's hot, we don't see any issues with the material either expanding or contracting. So the Habitat Black did a great job in repairing this fender. Now, if you have an idea about what we should do next, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Now, to keep up with our latest mold making and casting videos, remember to subscribe.